booktube. This is part 2 of my John Clare collection. It's by no means complete. Well, actually, this part is, because I believe I've got every edition that Arbour Editions has published, and I have another one on the way shortly. So this is complete. The previous one was just material that I have, so in no way a complete collection of John Clare or even the secondary material. So it was just a sort of a brief description of what I have. And I'd like to start out with a quote that I love of John Clare. It goes back to this idea where all this material that I'm going to show you now is basically in the vernacular, in the words that John Clare actually wrote, with very little changing and modernization of the language. And that again has caused some talk and controversy of some sort, but it gives you a good picture of sort of probably how he spoke and others spoke at the time. But this here quote I just love. And he said, "Grammar and learning is like tyranny and government. Confound the bitch, I'll never be her slave." I just love that. Yeah, Arbour Editions was created by Roger Rowe. He's been a lifelong, basically, fan, devotee of John Clare, from, I believe I remember seeing somewhere that he first came across Clare somewhere in the early 70s, something to do with BBC, and just fell in love. And he's been, he runs a Facebook page of John Clare, which I will put down at the bottom, and a blog, and he dips into the archive, the manuscripts, and gleans and takes out and brings and publishes stuff that's never been published before, actually. So it's a great boost and boon to those who love Clare, and they get to see stuff that's never been published before, and would never be able to see it. Just, sometimes fragments, sometimes full poems, and a novel we'll get to in a few minutes. And it was sort of with, Eric Robinson was alive, I believe they worked together, and one of the publications for Arbour Editions, I'm not going to put them in any order, but I'll start out with this one here, is sort of a tribute to Eric Robinson. It's called Time After Time. It's the personal prose and poetry of Eric H. Robinson. And it's compiled and introduced by Victoria Robinson, a.k.a. Robbie Vick, owner of Memoirs Becomes Memoirs, edited and forward by Roger Rowe. This was published 2016, and this was still when Eric Robinson was alive, and this was a little signed sheet that came with all those at the time by Eric Robinson, saying, "From one Clare fan to another, hope you enjoy my backstory." And yeah, it's a collection of some letters and a lot of his poetry. It's quite interesting, and because he was born in 1924, and he started working with the Clare material in 1964. So, and he died in the last year and a bit, I believe. Again, I'm not going to get into any of the controversy with regards to the copyright of the Clare material. That is a different argument and different thing. And if people want, if anybody is aware of that or is interested in it, then you can Google and find the material. Well, actually, the first items that were published were some handmade, almost, well, the A4 size, which is sort of like, full size, of books. There's a bit of a trilogy, and these are handmade. It's got cloth, different cloth for the spine, and pressed in letters on the spine with an indent photograph. First one was The Lovers' Meeting by John Clare, edited by Rowe and illustrated by Anne Lee. It's a limited edition in the John Clare Cottage Press. And there's no date for this, but I think it was about 2014 possibly, if my memory is correct. But yeah, it's more of his more amorous, I guess you would say, poetry. A lot of it wasn't published. This is actually his sort of retelling of a classic Ovid poem. And it's limited, and my copy is 145 of 200, signed by Anne Lee. It says limited edition consists of 300 copies, numbered copies of which 200 are bound in cloth and 100 quarter bound in leather. So I miss getting the leather ones, which I would love to have been able to get. But there's the limitation page. There are still some of these available. I believe the trilogy is still available to purchase. And I will leave a link to Roger Rowe's blog with all the listings for these and other publications. The second volume that was done, it was done in the exact same style. Insert and cloth on the spine. It's Poet in Love, compiled and created by Roger Rowe and Anne Lee, the forward by Ronald Blythe, and afterward by Eric Robinson. It's a limited edition by Arbour Editions this time and Logan Press. Again, I don't see a date here, but I think we're talking 2015. Again, it says limited edition consists of 300 numbered copies, of which 200 are bound in cloth and 100 quarter bound in leather. It's a bit odd because mine, the other one was signed by Anne Lee, and this was by Roger, but it says 31 of 100. Well, it's signed by both, Anne Lee and Roger, 31 of 100. So it's a little odd. I'm not quite sure why that is. It's 100. It's not the leather bound one, so it should be the 200. But I'm not sure what the if there is an error there. Again, it's is amorous and erotic poetry in many ways, and just wonderful illustrations, photographs by Anne Lee. Yeah, just beautiful. It's a beautiful production. And then the third one is done the same way. And these are all handmade as well. They're all, put together by hand. Limited handmade edition by Arbour Editions, fully this time, compiled and created by Roger Rowe and Anne Lee. In the Shadows, John Clare. That's the title page. I didn't show the title page of the other ones, but showed the limitations page. And this again is number 4 of 100, signed by both Roger Rowe and Anne Lee. And this is In the Shadows. It's mostly all his poetry about Mary Joyce, which she was the daughter of another farmer, but sort of I wouldn't say a different class, social class so much. She was a farmer, but he was a laborer, or a laborer's son. They did farm laborers. They didn't actually own any land, and the others didn't either. But they felt that she was out of his league, in other words. But he continually wrote about her, and just all throughout his life, he would write poems to her. He fantasized about her, and he just came back to her so many times. And again, it's all the poetry put together, and it's, again, wonderful illustrations. That's on the cover there, actually. And all done by Anne Lee. So those are the 3 hardcovers that were handmade, and Anne Lee made other ones they're very limited. This is Clare's Crows. It's silk covered, all handmade, limited to just 20 copies. Mine is 20 of 20. And it's inspired by John Clare, created by Anne Lee in 2015. And here, it's just snippets of poetry to do with crows that were sort of taken from the manuscripts. Here's one. The sinking sun is taking leave, and sweetly glides the edge of leave, while huddling clouds of purple dye gloomy hang the western sky. Crows crowd quaking overhead, hastening to the woods to bed. And beautiful, beautiful illustrations. And what's very interesting about this, it's bound, but it's an accordion book. It's an accordion book. And they're just, wonderful illustrations. It's all handmade, all hand stamped for every page. I was late to the table for not table, but I was late getting these, but I was lucky to get the very last copies of them all. And again, just wonderful, wonderful. And here's another one. It's Japanese. It's Japanese silk, Japanese paper. It's bound in Japanese style. It's oblong, as you can see. And, I had it upside down. Sorry, Solitude. And the end papers are a facsimile of Clare's writing, which is, I can't decipher it. It must be very difficult to decipher his material. And it's this wonderful paper, and poetry on solitude. It's from the original manuscript, which I don't think a lot of this, again, has never been published. And this, again, this was not 20 of 20, but it's limited to, it's a poem, Solitude, sourced and arranged by Roger Rowe from John Clare's original manuscript. The images and the book created by Anne Lee, printed on Awagame Inbi Japanese paper. I don't know if I pronounced that correct. Japanese side binding with silk book cloth, spine, and printed homemade Burga paper covers and end papers in a limited edition of 20 copies, and signed by Anne Lee, who created this. Mine's 14 of 20. And there's a few which called chapbooks. And they're wonderfully designed jackets over, just beautifully designed. And they're sewn. It's material that's sewn and nicely printed, again with beautiful illustrations. It's a limited handmade edition by Arbour Editions. This copy, again, is 20 of 20. This is wood pictures, and this was done, again, around 2016, I think. There's an afterword by Anne Lee and Roger Rowe. And I'll show you some of the beautiful illustrations here. This is why I say I think this was worth showing more detail, and I may even run out of time, because I really like these, and I think they deserve to be shown. And that's 20 as well, 20 of 20. In the Fields by John Clare. Again, the same production with the jacket and sewing. And this is limited to 20 of 20 as well. And this is In the Fields, created and compiled by Anne Lee and Roger Rowe. Again, just beautiful stamped, printed pictures, just gorgeous. And the third one is Among the Fen by John Clare. And just, yeah, again, just look at the beauty of the dust jacket that's on there, and sewing again. And it's again copy 20 of 20. I don't believe any of these are still available. I think I got the last copies, to be honest. And just gorgeous. Now, Roger Rowe has continued to publish material, gleaning material, and well, not gleaning, but transcribing material from the manuscripts. And this is Memoirs of Uncle Barnaby by John Clare. It's a novel that John Clare wrote. It's never been published before. It's never been put together, so it was in fragments in different places, and it's put together as much as possible in a narrative. It was unfinished, so it's Clare did not complete it in any shape or form, but again, it's a lost novel by John Clare, edited by Roger Rowe, Arbour Editions. Again, this is 2017, and this is quite interesting. It's called Hidden Treasures, Arbour Editions as well. And Clare, he was poor. He didn't always have paper to write on, so he or even ink. He couldn't afford ink at times, so he made his own concoction of ink. And at times he would write on sales receipts, newspaper bits, in the margins of other things, books, or even his notebooks if there was still space. He would just fill it up with material. And this is the bits and pieces, the fragments that are on those pieces of paper and in the margins. It's just a wonderful collection of poetry. Now, Roger started a series called the Arbour Chapbook series, and they're small little books. This is number 1, but he started in 2017, and this is Drinking with John Clare. Just wonderful poems about drinking. These are themed, generally themed, and a lot of the material has not been published before. It is new material from the archive, from the manuscript. So it's just wonderful to get this, and he's painstakingly transcribing it. Helpston's Fountains, another one. This is the Arbour Chapbook series number 2. Again, just very small. They're around 25 to 30 pages each. This is With the Gypsies. This is a wonderful one as well. This is 2017 as well, and it's number 3, as I said. It's just his writings about gypsies, playing games with John Clare. Again, themed for games. This is 18 pages, so it's a bit short. And that was published in 2017 as well. This is a great one. Accursed Wealth. This is, 2017. And he knew, Clare was aware and very astute of how the rich exploited the poor, and he wrote about it. A lot of this material never ever got published, and there's excerpts from the parish in there as well. I mentioned that earlier. Trees, A Strange Stillness, and his poetry on trees. This is a longer one. This is almost 50 pages long. And it's number 6, and that was published in 2018. And we've got Walking with John Clare, poetry about walking. And again, that's a longer one. That's just over 50 pages. Just some wonderful photographs that are from the area. And this is 2018. And about clouds, poetry in snippets, fragments and excerpts that Clare wrote about clouds, and as well as a lot of material that has not been published, and also including illustrated with clouds. This is 40 pages long and published 2018. This is the Gothic, and Clare, wrote Gothic bits and pieces, and this is just the same as the others, just a listing, snippets, fragments, and excerpts with the Gothic in mind. It's short, it's 26 pages, so it's similar to the other ones, the earlier ones. And this is number 9 we're up to here, and that's 2018. John Clare, The Revival of Interest in Northamptonshire Peasant Poet, by Rachel Sackman. It's a study, or this is number 10, and it's basically an essay on John Clare, so that was quite nice. It's not his poetry as such. This is Honesty and Hypocrisy by John Clare. Poetry on that. And that's again 30 pages long. And that's number 11, published 2019. Childhood's Glory. Just poetry. I read a little bit of that Childhood stanza, which there's bits and pieces in here from that. Longer poem and more. This is number 12. 2019. Birds nesting, and he's got a lot of poetry about birds and nesting, and this is some of the ones. Again, a lot of the material has not been published before, and this is 2019. A Call of Small Swipes, and he describes a cag of small swipes. Which was, I think, Northamptonshire saying, and I forget what it actually means. But this is number 14, and 2019 as well. And this is this 2015. I forgot I actually had this because the number 16 he's published. Roger has published. And it's basically back to his 1841, the year of 1841. It's Descent. I think it's called Descent. Something to do with that, Descent. But this is wonderful. I still had it from before Christmas, I think, just sitting in an envelope, and I'd forgotten about it. And I've been reading that this morning, and that's number 15, and number 16, as I say, is on its way to me. And I will leave a link down below in the description to Roger Rowe's Facebook page of John Clare, and I urge you to join it if you're interested in Clare or poetry in general, and to the blog where you can purchase any of these, except the very, very limited ones that were the 20. I think everything else is available. and very reasonably priced. So I urge everybody who's interested in this to, I'm not selling anything, but if you're interested in Clare and want to see stuff that's never been published for almost 200 years, basically, well, not quite 200 years, but 150 plus years, that's never been published, and they're just seen for the first time the light of day. It's going to be, and he's continuing with it, so it's quite a collection. As you can see, there's nothing on the spines because they're small, except the one, oh, that's the Hidden Treasures. But these are all the chapbooks, and it's a wonderful collection. That's all I can say. And if you like poetry and you like John Clare, I urge you to go there, at least look at it, and you should find something of interest. And I treasure these limited editions, handmade editions, because they're gone. They won't be. I don't think there's any plans of reprinting these at all. So, but I'll leave it there, and all the description will be down in the bottom. Thank you for bearing with me for 2 long videos on John Clare, but as I said, John Clare is my favorite poet, so I could continue on and on about John Clare. I've only briefly described some of his life. There's more information. If you're interested, you can buy the Jonathan Bates biography. There's a Wikipedia entry that's pretty good. There's also a In Our Time, Melvin Bragg did. It's okay, but it's a good introduction to Clare. But yeah, I'll leave it there, and I will speak to you later, BookTube. Bye.